All right, welcome. It's Chris Petri. Thanks so much for coming by. We're painting in oils. We're going to have a fun time creating this scene in Paris. Cafe. We have figures. We have some horses and figures on our horses. We have a statue over here on the left. We have all kinds of interesting information in this painting. We're going to show you all the techniques and methods that you would ever need to get this painting done. We're going to prime the canvas. We'll show you how to do that. Really important, actually. Absolutely key to having some really good success with your oil paintings, getting that really nice prime first on your canvas, and then you can work from there. We'll show you how you do that. You build up layers on top of your prime, a nice thin prime. We'll show you exactly how we're going to get this painting completed, A to Z, soup to nuts, everything, the whole kit and caboodle. So let's have fun. Let's enjoy the experience and the colors, the fun of it all, and we'll get started in just a second. All right, so we're going to move right along and prep everything here as we go. We're going to prep our canvas. You saw the finished painting, and we're really just going to enjoy the colors, the simplicity of this scene. There's a little bit of technical drawing maybe in the beginning or just some sketching, nothing, incredibly complex. We're doing a type of Parisian type scene. Paris, some cafes, people in the streets, maybe a couple horses, and beautiful, kind of relaxed color scheme. We're going to start out by I'm going to grab my brushes here, and I think I'll start out with some burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. Maybe some yellow ochre. I think that should be kind of good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So what I do is I'll just mix up those three colors. French ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, burnt umber, and we can kind of get some on the canvas here just to give ourselves some tone to start with. And then we can just take a rag and kind of blend it in. And if you want to leave some light, I'm going to leave a little bit of some light in the sky perhaps. So I might do a couple of horizontal type of movements with my brush for the sky. And I'm just taking the very fun, loose approach of just enjoying the colors and the excitement of the scene. And I'll just keep getting on my You could use a larger brush if you want. Maybe I'll step up to a larger brush. And then usually what I do is I have a little bit of water next to me, a water pail, water container. These are water mixable oil paints. So these are the Artisan brand, Artisan line. Winsor & Newton is the paint. Again, it's water soluble. You don't need any paint thinners, any kind of, it's just soap and water will clean your brushes. Soap and water will clean off your hands or anything else, your working surfaces at the end of the day. And then again, when you're mixing your paints, you can rinse off your brush with just plain old water to clean off your brush. And that's it. So this is really a great oil paint because it allows you to use water for cleanup and for thinning down your paint. If you want to thin down your paint, you just add a little bit of water. So I did that just now. I'll go back in, grab some more yellow ochre, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, and we'll keep working some of those colors in here. And I'm gonna, again, I'm using my rag here, simple white rag cloth. I'm going to go back and forth, side to side, and vertical and horizontal. And again, no particular I'll keep some of the light here and here. So I'm thinking the sky is here, buildings, and then a street here. So I'll leave some light in the street area. And you saw the finished painting just a few minutes ago, so you're already you can envision what I'm trying to do here. Maybe I'm just trying to get like a little bit of the light in the center of the central portion of my canvas. And again, you're having fun with the brushes and the paint, you know, and just having a great time. That's what art's about, just having a great time, enjoying yourself. You know, you just learn a little bit as you go, and then it just keeps stacking. All of your knowledge and your experience just keeps getting stacked one on top of the next, like a pancake stack, and eventually you got a large stack of pancakes or so forth, and that's a knowledge. So you have lots of pancakes or knowledge, and you just keep working. You'll keep stacking those pancakes, and eventually you're gonna have lots of knowledge, lots of pancakes stacked, and then you're kind of really good to go. You know, you put as much as you want into it. You're the artist. You're going to figure out what kind of time you have to devote to your artwork and how much you want to do. Not everybody's going to want to try to outdo Winslow Homer or Claude Monet. So we just have fun with it anyway. Enjoy the journey of art. This is great too. This is so much fun. You can bring this with you anywhere you go. Vacation, weekend getaways. You can go in the backyard and paint some flowers with your oils anywhere you want to go. You know, they're user friendly. Like I said, you know, everything cleans up with water, soap and water, or just water, or soap and water is a little bit better for your brushes, to clean your brushes at the end of your session. When you're done painting, you know, you can just quickly, I have a larger bucket I usually use. Let me see if I can find it over here. There it is. So I just have a larger bucket like this, and I fill this with warm water when I'm done painting, and put all my brushes in here with hot soapy water, warm soapy water, and just clean off my brushes. Really thoroughly clean them, dump out the water, put some more fresh water in there, you know, and then just rinse the brushes one more time with some clean water, and then let them dry out naturally for the next time. All right, so we have everything in really good shape now. So this is fantastic. This canvas is now prepped and we're ready to paint actually, but what I'll do is I will take a quick break. We've worked a little bit, and I'll just mention my colors too as we go here, so that we kind of just have a good idea of, again, the colors we're using. So to mix this primer that we did for our canvas, we're toning the canvas with a little bit of color. We used a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of French ultramarine blue, and a little bit of yellow ochre. All those three to give us kind of a cardboard look. If you can imagine, that kind of looks like cardboard, doesn't it? The color. It's almost like, so if you have a piece of cardboard around, you can always take a piece of cardboard and match it to the color of your underpainting, and you'll find that that'll be a really good primer for your canvas. And then we have other colors on here that we're going to use. Perhaps we are going to use we're going to use all of these colors that we just used. Then we're going to use some red, so alizarin crimson, cadmium red, maybe some cadmium yellow too. So that's cadmium yellow. It's kind of an orangey yellow, warm yellow. And then we'll have white, of course. We'll mix in white to lighten in our colors, our paint. We want to lighten up our paint a little bit, make it lighter. We can add some white to it. And then we'll have the phthalo green and cerulean blue, again with that kind of that cooler bit of colors right here. So your French ultramarine blue, phthalo green, and cerulean blue. That's kind of our cool colors over here. And then our warm colors are up here. And then our white. I think that's, going to be plenty. And we're going to, again, just have a really fun time. And I think our underpainting is going to it has already done a lot of work for us. So if you can get that underpainting on, you'll notice that it's really going to accomplish a lot for you. It'll take all the pressure off, because now you're really going to go in and start doing your, more or less your, a little bit of your darker tonal values on top of this, your darker darks. And that should give you a good basic painting with just adding the darker darks to the paint, to the canvas right now. You will add maybe a little bit of white paint in the sky a little bit, or we'll do a couple highlights maybe with the white. But for the most part, you're going to notice that we're going to probably do mostly darker darks, and then we'll finish up with maybe a little bit of the whites, lighter lights mixed with some gold, yellow ochre and things like this. But we'll kind of go with the flow as we work on our painting here. And we won't make this a 5-hour video. We're just going to keep it simple, have a fun time with it, and you'll see that it's just a lot of enjoyment just creating a painting like this. And again, a lot of times getting this first primer on your canvas is going to really go a long way for you. So I hope you won't bypass this and try to go around this step. I want you to really notice that this is a really important key step to your painting, is getting this primer on, and of course setting yourself up for success by leaving some of the bright light of the canvas, because that can only help. When you leave that light there, you're already kind of seeing like that's some light in the sky in this scene, and then on the roadway here too, in the street. Okay, all right, we'll be right back and we'll get started. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I like to keep a paper towel, or you can use the same rag that we put the primer on our canvas. You can use this to dry off your brush as you're working. I like to use some paper towels. I always keep paper towels, whether I'm working in watercolor or oil paintings. I like to have my paper towel to dry off the brush a little bit. So I'm rinsing off my brush over in the water container over to the right here, and then I take off a little bit of water. What I'd like to do is just take some more of that same color, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, yellow ochre, like this. And what I want to do is start sketching out just some rough ideas of what we're going to have here. So we'll have some buildings on the left and the right. I'll start with my left maybe, and I'll kind of notice maybe the buildings are, we'll maybe come over here and we'll have some buildings like this coming down like this, like this. Like that, and then we'll come over here, and then maybe we'll have some taller buildings up here, and then I would just rough in the shapes. So I'm going to go with I notice there's a lot of square and rectangular shapes you can kind of see here for this building here. So, and then you can kind of look at your I would say if you can hit pause and work and draw from my painting that we're doing here. So you can go right back to the beginning if you want to at this point, and then do this process with your brush and a little bit of the paint, and kind of sketch out from the beginning of the video where you see the painting completed. You could do that. That'll probably work really well. So there's a canopy here, like that. And like this. Okay, and then I think we're getting close to what we kind of need here. This is fine. We will have a couple other things over here. Maybe there's going to be a circular sign there. Then up here there might be a flag there. Another street sign up here, and this will be up top. This is going to be another structure up there, part of the building. Okay, so now we're in really strong shape. We have our structures all set up, and we can start actually going over with our painting the darker darks. And again, you can keep this to the side, this brush. We'll go in with a little bit of a larger flat brush now, so we'll use this flat brush. Sometimes I need something a little bit, you can kind of see the shape of it. This is a number 4 Princeton Aspen brush. So now I'm going to start mixing up a little more darker darks, and then I'll just start working my way around here. Gold. I'll move out some brown onto the canvas over here. Some more of that blue to get some more darker darks there. Blue, French ultramarine blue. We're going to go with some cadmium red. Over here, I'll mix some of that cadmium red like this with some alizarin crimson. So again, we're going to make some red with cadmium red and alizarin crimson. We'll take a little bit of that brown too. The burnt umber, put that in there. And what else are we going to use here? I think that might be good for now. Like that. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So we're going to use mostly the warm colors right now. And I'll just start blocking these in. So these might be a little bit lighter here. This might be a little lighter red here. That's pretty light too. That's not, well, this is actually a good dark. We could add a little more cadmium red to that. So you can kind of see I'm just blocking in the kind of the red colors here. And then I'll go in with some straight brown with a little bit of that French ultramarine blue. We have a little bit of a darker bit here, so I'll put that here like that. I'll rinse off my brush, dry off some of the paint and water on a paper towel. So if you have a paper towel, you can get a good amount of that paint off there, and you can just rinse the brush. Do it a few times until your brush is somewhat clean. Back to clean again, and then we can just get a little bit of the red there, like this. We'll make a little bit of a lighter red there. You can even add a touch of white, maybe. Now that's a little bit, now if you see that you've made something and you say, ah, that looks a little bit too, that white might have just pushed it too much light, you can just do a quick, with some paper towel or a rag, and then you just take some more of that dark brown and then tone it back down a little bit if you want to. That'll work. Like that. That's much better. Okay, and then we're going to, again, we're going to take some of that yellow ochre and brown and a little bit of the cadmium red. We'll see if we can get a, maybe this is like cadmium red. I'll take a good bit of that cadmium red, a little bit of the brown, kind of mix it in there. That looks pretty good for the canopy. And we'll do more details to this in a little while once we block everything in. So we're just kind of getting the larger blocks of color into the painting. And I think we're looking good now. I think we have a good amount of information working for us, and then we can start putting in some So I'm just going to block in some information here. Nothing too definite, just some shapes here, just to get some color in there. We will put some figures in here too. And But so far, I think it's looking pretty good. Again, I want you to have fun with this. Enjoy the process of how we're going through the steps. Okay, so we're to the point now where we are blocking in some of these good darks. So I'm going to put some of these darker darks up here. Okay. And that's it. I think that'll be fine for up top. We'll leave that as it is. And I think maybe we'll work over here a little bit. But let's tell you what, let's take a quick break. I'm going to rinse off my brush now here and start to rinse this off and clean up this brush here a little bit. I'll put this to the side. Actually, I'm going to use it over here, so I'll just set this down for right now. But we're going to come back in just a second, and we'll work over here on this side of the street where this building is over here, kind of much more subdued and kind of quiet looking. It's sort of in further away from us, and this is closer to us, so this is darker. And then we'll kind of, have this again over here on the side, left side, a little more quiet. And you'll kind of see that we're really moving through this pretty quickly and efficiently. And we're probably almost to the halfway point. So I think once we get this done, we're at the halfway point, and then the rest will be just doing the finer details and having a good time with that. Okay, so let's do that. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll start to work over here a little bit. On this side over here, and then we'll be in good shape then once we get this over here kind of working. Alright, now we're going to come over here and work on this a little bit. So over here, let's get some color on this. And you can see I'm just going to scrub on some color. Nothing too fancy. I'm going to go, vertical and horizontally. Some of that brown. Okay. You can use a paper towel or a rag. Maybe you want to lift up a little bit of the paint there, make it a little bit softer looking. I think that looks good though. Kind of what we're after here. And then you can even go in and dry off the brush a little bit, but get some of the darker paint on there. Maybe do a couple. We'll do a little bit of some markings on the. We'll do some windows. So this is where we wouldn't want to go too much, trying to do anything really fancy or too neat. We want to definitely just keep this, pretty much. We'll get some dark there, some really good dark with the brown, blue, and a little bit of the red. So you can add a little bit of a really nice dab of dark here and there. That's going to look good. So we have just a couple of the darker darks, maybe just in a few spots. And then we can dry that off a little bit and go back to more of a medium tone. So we don't want to have too much rinse off the brush a little bit. Okay, and we have the couple more windows. Like that. Maybe we'll take a little bit of this green, the phthalo green, a little bit of white. We'll see if we can get a little bit of interesting color over here. That really looks good. If you get some of these little accent colors, onto the painting like this, it really goes a long way. You can blot up a little bit if you think you had too much on there. You can do a little bit of blotting to maybe, but that's kind of nice. That looks kind of good. And then you can add a little bit of that bluish green, maybe in a few spots, and just kind of blend it lightly into maybe a couple spots in the sky. Just gently put it in there and really almost like barely, so you can kind of barely notice it. And that'll really, same thing over here. You can put a couple of those dabs of that over here, just a touch of it. I like to say if you can harmonize your colors around your painting, that's really going to go a long way. So if you notice, I just did a few small bits of that blue, that green, that blue-green, the phthalo green. And you can blend it out and soften it out a little bit. But that's kind of nice. It's almost like this would be like this bluish green that we're using now. It's kind of like a watch or earrings or a necklace. Like if we're getting dressed to go out, for a fancy dinner or something, and we put on a watch or earrings or necklace, things like this, cufflinks. That's kind of what this is, like this little bit of that phthalo green in just a few spots. It kind of adds a pop of color in there that really, makes the painting much more interesting and exciting. So that's why we do it. And then, since we are kind of in a good place right now where we have a lot of the main subject matter in now, the building's on the left, the building on the right, we have our canopy here. We're going to start going in and just do some real fun, loose figure work, and maybe we'll do a horse or two and some figure work. And I think this painting is really going to start to look fantastic. So let's we're going to use the same colors we've been using: burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, to get a nice dark. So let's get some darks now. I'll come over here on the left hand side. Maybe we'll have a horse over here. Okay. All right. So just have a fun time with your figures, and if you're going to do a horse. If you don't want to do a horse, no big deal. Horses a little bit. Those are a little challenging, the shapes of horses, but it's not. It's not incredibly challenging. It's kind of not too bad. And you can just take the shadowing effect, the reflections down into the street like this, like that. We'll have a rider on there. Okay, so we're going to have a rider on there. And then over here, maybe we're going to have another horse here, like that. This one is going to be more foreshortened, so I'm going to leave it a little bit forward here. And again, I'm not going, too much with incredible details, just some. We're going to have our other rider here, like that. And if you can just maybe do the suggestion of it, and it doesn't have to necessarily be like every detail or anything like that. You just have it like this, with some of in the street, like that. We're going to pretend the street's a little bit damp, like it's just we had a little bit of rain, a little bit of drizzle or rain on the street there, so we have that little shininess to the street, a little bit of that reflections and things. And then let's come over here. And again, we'll keep the colors. I'm going to keep the colors somewhat, I'm not going to go with really, I'll keep the colors. We'll do a woman here in a dress, like this. Okay. And have a reflection there. And if anything, you're just having fun getting some marks onto your canvas with your paint. And, You can smooth things out later if you want and make things a little more finished looking. But if I can block in some of the main information like we're doing here, I think we're going to be happy with just getting some really good information onto our canvas. And then you can change things around a little bit if you think you need to make your figures a little bit larger over here in the foreground over this way. Please do. If you want to blend them in a little more, maybe you want to make someone with a red shirt or something like that, that's fine. You could take some cadmium red with a little bit of cadmium yellow for some of those flesh tones that might be like that. Okay, and then let's keep working with the same colors we've been using. Again, we're not getting too fancy or anything like that. We'll make some other figures over here. They're going to be kind of smaller, but the heads will be sort of at the same height. So we kind of keep the tops of the heads at the same heights. Like that. So that's always good. See if we can get a little, I'm just going to get a little more variation in the colors. Like this. So we're going to have plenty of people here. Just going to have a little bit of some background there. Okay, so we have some good information going on here. Maybe we'll start doing a little more. We'll do some details over here. So I'm just going to make a detail with that there. I'll take some of that again, that blue, French ultramarine blue and brown, mix with a tiny bit of water to thin it down just a touch. I almost like to leave it straight paint, but sometimes you can get that little tiny bit of water in there and then roll your brush around and you get a nice point on your brush. And then you can do a little more detail work like this with your you can get some more details in here like this. Okay, and then that looks pretty good. Maybe we go with just a tiny bit of blue here. A little bit of that coolness. And again, maybe, yeah, a little bit of that cool blue, the French ultramarine blue and cerulean blue. If you can get some cool bits of paint in here now, it's going to be good. Maybe then we just take all this here, and maybe we're just going to take a little bit of that, put a little bit of this here like this, and again we're just going to get some marks on the paper, and then we can do this like that. Look at that, how good that looks. a couple of scrapes down with a paper towel and a couple of scrapes across this way. That gives you that kind of look of, the street being a little bit wet with some rain. A little bit of the blue you can put in there, like this. Maybe now we'll come over here in the center section, do the same thing. Like that. Maybe a little darker darks over here on the right, because we do have that building up above, so that's going to reflect down in here. So let's just take that whole build up this top here, and this is going to get reflected down in the street like that, and then you can just do a little bit of that like this, give it that kind of that reflective look. Like that. Okay. And I'm telling you, we are in really good shape here. I think we're gonna leave this as it is. We're not gonna keep working and working and working this thing, and then all of a sudden we're like unhappy because we overworked the painting, and we wanted to just kind of really have a good feeling of we wanted to have a nice, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break, but we definitely wanted to have nice, strong contrast, right? So we have some really good darks over here. We have darks over here. We have some darks as well over on this side. And with the horses, we could put a large dark over here to maybe weight down the painting over here. Doesn't have to necessarily be anything discernible as far as features go. We might say, you know what, let's just put a large block, and this is, when you're an artist, you can do things like this. You can just say, I'm going to put a large block of, I'm going to pretend it's maybe a base for a sculpture of some sort. Maybe we'll put a sculpture up over here. Let's try that. Well, maybe we'll put a horse sculpture on top of this here. So we'll do that. We'll get this reflection down. Same thing. We'll do the same thing here. Kind of like that. And then go back in. French ultramarine blue. And burnt umber like that. So we do have that dark like that. Okay, that looks good. You can make a line with some water here like this, and then take a paper towel and kind of just fold up and like make a point with the paper towel like that. And voila, we have it. And then maybe I'll just do a quick rendition of a horse up here. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be you can have something that's and also too with things like okay, all right, this is not the the best horse I've ever painted or drawn, but I think it's okay. And again, we just wanted to kind of distract. We wanted to make sure that we have some dark over here on this side of the painting, balancing this dark over here. So I think if we left this all light over here, I think we'd have a little bit of a feeling of too much weight on this side of the painting, which might make it feel like the painting is going to tip over this way. So balance is a very important part of design when you're designing your paintings. And we'll put I'll put a figure on top here on the horse. Okay, so I think we are good. Let's just take one more break, and when we come back from our break, this is when we're going to walk up to the painting and stand here and look at it and go, all right, what else can we do just to maybe do a last few minute details that we might have, forgot to do. Let's just think of it that way, but we don't want to keep working and working and working and putting more details into the painting, and so that it becomes like overworked. So we want to keep from overworking our painting, and you could always come back a week or two later and add some things in there if you wanted to. So you're better off always underdoing your paintings a little bit, and then you can go back in, and especially with oils, you can go back in and add things in. It's a little more easier to add things in when you're painting in oils than, let's say, watercolors. Watercolors is a little more challenging to go in and add things sometimes, but for oil painting, no problem. We can go back in and add something if we want to. Okay, so let's come right back in a few minutes and we'll just finish up a few details, and I think we'll call it a finished painting. All right, so let's just do a few more things here. I think let's try a little bit of the French flag here we have. Let's add some blue. Let's add some blue here, some French ultramarine blue. Like that. And so rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the water. Maybe we'll do a little bit of the red here, so we'll get some red and white too, so I'll rinse that off first. I'll do the white next, so I'm going to rinse off my brush, dry off the water, pick up a little bit of white. Now that we're adding this white, we're probably going to have to add some white to our painting, so that's not a big deal. We'll go back in and do a few more, and we'll do the red here, like that. Okay, so we have the French flag there. And we'll take a little bit of white with some yellow ochre. We'll do a few highlights. See if we can do a couple highlights here on our figures. I just want to make sure my white has some of that yellow ochre in it, because the sky has a lot of yellow ochre and brown in it, so we wouldn't want to make the highlights too bright white. We want to have that. So I just put a few little spots here and there of the light. Maybe we'll do a few stripes here, like that. That and like this, put a little bit of detail in there. Nothing too incredibly detailed. And I'll put in some. So there, I'll add some of that yellow ochre and white to that white of the flag there, so this way it doesn't have that stark white look. And there we go. And then if you just do these nice and quick and simple, some of these details here, they're going to look better like that if we do it this way. Instead of really fussing around too much. That can really add a problem to our paintings. We could put another couple of highlights there. Doesn't come out good and you don't think that highlight looks good, blot it up a couple times with with a paper towel. You just blot up your paint with a paper towel, then you rinse off your brush and you blend it in there. So you can blend in a spot like that and just make it kind of bring back in some dark there. Like that, and it fixes it. So, you can fix things as you go. If you add something you don't like, no problem. Quick fixes always can work. Just have to have that little bit of patience with it, and that should be fine. All right, so we're going to call this a day. Really happy that you joined along here, painting in oils. We're going to get together again. We're always getting, at least getting together once every 2 weeks to create our oil paintings, and we're going to do a lot more like this. I like these scenes a lot, these street scenes. I like to, at the end of the painting, just peel off this here, and then we can just quickly fix up these little bits of areas there. And then and that's kind of simple to do. We get our rag again, blot it up a little bit, blot it. Most of the times frames are going to cover the very, very top and bottom of your painting. So it's not really too much of a big deal. But so I like to just get the tape, because I taped both the bottom and the top of this painting. And then it's just like that. Okay. All right, we're going to see you on the next video. And happy painting, everybody. We'll see you soon.